Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise and get to the heart of complex topics. Today we're diving into this stack of sources you sent over, all about the rumored iPhone 17 lineup. Looks like it's expected later this year. We've got articles from What Hi-Fi, Phone Arena, McRumors, even some stuff from Reddit, and a Tech Leak YouTube channel. Quite a mix.
Yeah, it's a really good stack, actually. Pulls from, several different angles in the rumor mill. Seems like it covers everything from the big picture, like potential new models and some pretty dramatic design shifts down to the nitty-gritty internals. And, of course, everyone's favorite topic, how much it's all going to cost.
Absolutely. So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important bits from all these sources, see where they line up, where they disagree, and just help you figure out what Apple might actually have cooking. It feels like some genuinely big, maybe even disruptive changes are on the way, especially the look and the lineup itself.
Definitely. I mean, based on the sheer amount of chatter and what these rumors are saying, it's shaping up to be one of the more, let's say, interesting iPhone years to analyze in a while. There's a lot here.
Okay, let's do it then. Let's unpack this sack, starting with what feels like the biggest structural thing, the lineup.
Right. So straight away, these sources are pretty much all saying the same thing. We're looking at a shift. Come September 2025, the thinking is 4 models, but a different 4 than we've got now. We'll probably see the standard iPhone 17, the 17 Pro, the 17 Pro Max, and then something brand new in the mix.
And that new one is this heavily rumored iPhone 17 Air.
Correct. And yeah, with the Air coming in, it looks like the Plus model is getting the boot. The one that gave you a bigger screen on the standard iPhone for the last couple of years. Sources are suggesting it didn't sell as well as maybe Apple hoped. Didn't quite hit the mark with customers.
Okay, so the Air isn't just the Plus with a different name slapped on it.
No, and that's really key here, something these leaks are emphasizing. The 17 Air isn't just about size. It's meant to be a new option, positioned as like a genuine mid-tier phone. So cheaper than the Pros, but costing more than the standard iPhone 17. It's filling a gap price-wise and maybe feature-wise, not just being the big version of the base model.
Got it. So a totally new step on the ladder. And the big headline for this rumored iPhone 17 Air seems to be, well, it's thin. Like really thin.
Exactly. That's the defining rumor for the Air. We're seeing numbers thrown around like between 5 millimeters and maybe 6.25 millimeters thick.
Whoa.
Yeah. And just for context, right, the old iPhone 6, which everyone remembers as being super thin back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That was 6.9 millimeters. So if these rumors are right, the 17 Air would be the thinnest iPhone ever made, significantly thinner.
That is wild. That feels like a huge design statement, really pushing the form factor, but that immediately makes you think.
Compromises, right? You can't make something that thin without giving something up somewhere else. Absolutely. And the sources jump right on that. The biggest potential trade-off seems to be the battery. One leak specifically mentions a battery capacity of just 2,800 milliamp for the Air.
Wow, 2,800. That's tiny. Especially when you hear about, like, that rumored Samsung S25 Edge being similarly thin, but maybe having closer to 3,900 milliamp. That's a huge gap.
It is. It's a major question mark hanging over this whole Air concept. And how Apple plans to make that work.
Yeah.
Well, that's where things get a bit fuzzy in the sources. Some reports mention maybe new battery tech, like higher density silicon anode stuff. Could pack more power and less space.
Okay.
But, concrete evidence that tech is ready and going into the Air specifically, that seems kind of lacking right now. Others lean more heavily on software tricks, maybe leveraging all that Apple Intelligence stuff in iOS 19 to just be super efficient with the power it does have.
Relying on software magic for a 2,800 milliamp battery feels like a big ask for efficiency. What about the rest of the Air's design?
Well, design-wise, it's rumored to have a pretty distinct camera bump, like an elongated shape, maybe centered on the back, and housing just a single 48-megapixel rear camera, which, is a decent megapixel count, same as the main sensor on the current 16 Pro, but just the one lens here.
And I saw mentions of really subtle tweaks, too, just to make that thinness work.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at some of the leaked dummy units or renders, you see these tiny things, like the USB-C port on the bottom maybe being shifted slightly off-center, front to back, or the speaker grills just being 2 small holes instead of the usual 5. Tiny details, yeah, but they really highlight how tough it might be engineering-wise, and the lengths they might go to just to hit that super thin target.
Okay, so that's the whole new Air idea. Let's switch over to the top end then, the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. Sounds like they're also in for a big design change, maybe the biggest visual shakeup since, the iPhone X?
That's what multiple sources are pointing towards, yeah. And it's definitely stirring up a lot of conversation online. One of the biggest rumors, maybe the most surprising, is a potential move away from the titanium frame we saw on the 15 Pro and 16 Pro.
Oh.
And maybe back to aluminum for the 17 Pro series.
Aluminum. Really? That feels, I don't know, like a step backwards in terms of premium feel. Titanium sounds more high-end.
It does, yeah, on the surface. But some sources are also suggesting the back material might change along with it. Maybe like half aluminum, half glass.
Huh. Okay. Why?
Well, the thinking seems to be the glass part at the bottom would keep wireless charging working, obviously, but the aluminum part at the top could make it tougher, more durable against drops compared to an all-glass back.
Ah, okay. So maybe prioritizing durability a bit more. That's an interesting mix.
It is a potential trade-off there.
Now, what about that camera bump on the Pros? That seems to be the other huge talking point and maybe more controversial.
Oh, absolutely. That is the dominant discussion point for the Pro design right now, instead of the square we're used to. Yeah. Leaks are pointing to this much larger bump, sometimes described as rectangular, sometimes like an elongated oval. Some mock-ups even show it stretching almost all the way across the back, which, as you can imagine, immediately drew comparisons to Google's Pixel phones.
Right, the Pixel visor look.
Exactly. And this bump is also rumored to be aluminum, not glass-like now, and maybe color-matched to the phone.
And that's where the Reddit threads you sent got pretty fired up. Lots of strong reactions to that rumored look.
Oh, yeah. The comments are definitely vocal and often not positive. A lot of people calling it ugly, hideous, just plain awkward. There's this feeling it doesn't really fit Apple's usual clean, minimal style. And yeah, that copying Google critique pops up constantly and usually not in a good way.
It's definitely polarizing, assuming the rumors are accurate. But is there any practical reason suggested for such a big, weirdly shaped bump? Or is it just look?
Not necessarily just looks. Some sources, and even some commenters, speculate about practical reasons. A bigger bump might just be needed to fit the upgraded cameras we're going to talk about, especially those rumored bigger sensors for the 48MP system.
Okay, that makes sense.
And maybe, just maybe, it helps the phone lie flatter on a table. You know, reduces that wobble you get with the current square bumps. So could be function driving that controversial form.
Interesting. Function over form, maybe. What about the dynamic island up front? Are we finally seeing that shrink down after a couple of years?
That's another spot with conflicting signals. Some analysts do suggest it could get narrower across the whole lineup, using some new Metalens tech for the Face ID bits. But then other big leakers and analysts don't expect any real physical change to the island size on the 17 series. They think it'll stay pretty much the same as the iPhone 16.
So, still up in the air on that one.
Very much so. Whether that notch replacement gets a trim remains to be seen.
All right, let's move under the hood then. Beyond the looks, what kind of performance upgrades are we expecting with the 17 series?
Well, as you'd pretty much expect every year, chip upgrades are on the table. The iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max are rumored to get the brand new A19 Pro chip, the standard 17 and the new 17 Air. They're expected to get the regular A19 chip. Though there is one rumor floating around that the base iPhone 17 might stick with the A18 from the iPhone 16, maybe to create more separation or just manage costs.
In these chips, they're built on a new process, more efficient, faster.
Yeah, the expectation is TSMC's updated 3-nanometer process, the N3P node specifically, should bring boosts in both power efficiency and raw speed compared to the last gen. And efficiency gains are going to be super important, you'd think, especially with that rumored tiny battery in the air.
Oh, absolutely. Efficiency is crucial there. What about RAM? Is that getting a bump too?
RAM is another area that might see an upgrade right across the board, which is pretty interesting. Sources are suggesting the 17 Air, the 17 Pro, and the 17 Pro Max could all jump to 12 gigabytes of RAM.
Wow, 12 gigs, up from 8 in the current Pros.
Yep. And the standard 17 might also hit 12 gigs if supplies work out, but it's expected to have at least 8. And this RAM increase is pretty widely thought to be directly linked to supporting more complex AI features right on the device, you know, like Apple Intelligence stuff.
Right. More RAM for on-device AI makes perfect sense. Anything to help keep these powerful new chips cool when you push them.
For the Pro models, potentially yes. There are rumors about maybe introducing vapor chamber cooling.
Okay.
It's a more advanced cooling method, helps spread the heat out better, stop the phone from slowing down during really demanding tasks like gaming or heavy video work.
Makes sense for the Pros. And connectivity. What's changing there? Wi-Fi, 5G?
Connectivity is also seeing some movement. All four iPhone 17 models are expected to get Apple's first custom-designed Wi-Fi chip, supporting Wi-Fi 7. That could bring its own efficiency and speed benefits just for Wi-Fi.
Okay, Apple's own Wi-Fi chip.
Yep.
But the 5G modem, there's some disagreement there, right? Apple's been wanting to make their own modem for ages.
That's exactly right, and yeah, the rumors diverge a bit here. One source suggests the 17 Air will be the very first iPhone to get an Apple-designed 5G modem, though maybe limited to sub-6 gigahertz 5G at first.
Sub-6, that's the more common, but generally slower 5G.
Yep, wider range, but not the super fast millimeter wave speeds. And the same rumor suggests the Pro models would actually stick with Qualcomm modems for now. Maybe Apple's modem isn't quite ready for prime time or mmWave yet. But then another perspective suggests Apple is developing its Wi-Fi and 5G chips together, specifically looking for overall power savings, which kind of implies it might be a broader strategy over time, maybe just starting with the Air as a first step.
Okay, interesting divergence there. Let's dive into cameras. Always a huge deal for iPhones, right? What's the scoop across the lineup this time?
Yeah, cameras are definitely a consistent theme in these rumors, and there are some potentially big jumps. One really crucial upgrade, and this is supposedly for all four models, the 17 Air Pro and Pro Max, is the front-facing camera. It's rumored to go from the current 12 megapixels up to 24 megapixels.
Whoa, 24 megapixels for the selfie camera? That's double.
It is. Should mean noticeably better photos, especially in dim light, and just way more flexibility for cropping your shots or videos without losing a ton of detail. For selfies, video calls, vlogging, that's actually a pretty big deal for how people use that camera.
Definitely. What about the cameras on the back?
So on the back, the standard iPhone 17 is expected to keep its usual two lenses, wide and ultra-wide. Probably some sensor tweaks, but the same basic setup. The 17 Air, like we said, with that unique bump, just a single 48-megapixel rear camera is the rumor there.
And the really big news is mainly on the Pro models, isn't it?
Exactly. The major camera story, and it's pretty significant if true, is on the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. They are rumored to be the first iPhones ever to have three 48-megapixel lenses. So the wide, the ultra-wide, and the telephoto lens all getting that big sensor upgrade.
A 48-megapixel telephoto. That's totally new territory for iPhone zoom.
It really is. The rumor is that the telephoto goes from the current 12 megapixels, which gives you 5x optical zoom on the 16 Pro Max up to 48 megapixels. Now, the native optical zoom might actually drop slightly, maybe to around 3.5x, according to some leaks.
Huh, okay. Less optical zoom.
Yeah, but the idea is that having way more megapixels at that 3.5x range could allow for much, much better digital zoom beyond that point. You get a super sharp base image at 3.5x, and then when you digitally crop in further, you've got all that extra resolution to work with. Kind of like how phones like the Galaxy S25 Ultra handle their zoom ranges.
Ah, I see. So sharper native zoom, much better digital zoom further out. That strategy makes sense.
That seems to be the thinking.
Yeah.
And beyond just megapixels, there are whispers about maybe a mechanical aperture on the Pro models.
Ooh, like a real camera.
Kind of. It would let the camera physically adjust the lens opening, giving you better control over depth of field, like getting that nice background blur intentionally and letting more light in when needed. Plus, maybe 8K video recording finally coming to the Pro Max.
Okay, lots happening with the Pro cameras. But one quick thought, that rumored horizontal camera layout on the Pros. Doesn't that mess with spatial video?
Ah, good point.
Because right now, that needs the wide and ultra-wide stacked vertically to capture depth for the Vision Pro, right?
It absolutely does, yeah. And that's something brought up in the sources as a bit of a head-scratcher. Spatial video uses that vertical separation to mimic your eyes. A horizontal layout just wouldn't work the same way when you hold the phone sideways to record, which is how you normally do it.
So, what does that mean?
Well, it suggests a few possibilities. Either the horizontal layout rumors aren't quite right, or Apple has some completely new way to capture depth with horizontal lenses. Or maybe spatial video capture gets limited somehow, or even changed or dropped on the 17 Pros. Which seems unlikely, but it's a technical question raised purely by those conflicting design rumors. Definitely a question mark.
Yeah, interesting puzzle there. Okay, moving on quickly to battery and charging. Besides the Air's capacity concerns, any other changes expected?
Well, there's some talk about battery repairability improving. Sources mention this new electric adhesive tech being used across the lineup. We heard about it for the 16 and 16 Plus. Makes it easier for repair shops to swap batteries. Sounds like that might extend to the 17 Pro models this year, too.
That's good news. And charging speeds. iPhone always feels a bit slow there compared to some others.
Yeah, wired charging is rumored to get a slight bump, maybe up to 35 watts across the board.
Okay, 35 watts. Still not crazy fast like some Android phones, but better than the current 27 watts on the 16 Pro.
Exactly. An improvement, even if modest. Wireless charging via MagSafe is expected to stay at 25 watts. Oh, and there's a possibility of 7.5 watt reverse wireless charging maybe coming to the Pro model, so you could charge your AirPods in the back of the phone.
Finally, other phones have had that for ages. And durability, with that potential switch back to aluminum on the Pros.
Yeah, that rumored aluminum frame and maybe partly aluminum back on the Pros could potentially make them a bit tougher against drops compared to the current titanium and all glass back. Glass is always the weak spot, right? So adding more metal, especially on the back, might make them slightly more robust.
Right. Okay, so we've hit the lineup, the design debates, the specs, the cameras, battery stuff. Now for the bit everyone kind of dreads, but we have to talk about it. Price.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room whenever you talk about big upgrades and new materials with all these potential changes, new tech, component costs. Yeah, the sources are pretty much all warning that a price hike for the iPhone 17 series seems like a real possibility.
Are they giving specific reasons beyond just, things cost more?
Well, yeah, increasing component costs are mentioned, obviously.
Right.
Things like those new camera sensors, maybe the custom chips. Potential tariffs also get brought up sometimes. Some sources guess that Apple might try to frame any price increase around the value of the new features and design, rather than just blaming outside factors, to make it easier for consumers to swallow.
Right. Any specific numbers being thrown around? Like how much more are we potentially looking at?
Well, one report, I think it was Phone Arena, specifically suggested the base iPhone 17 Pro model could finally break that $1,000 barrier in the US. And that YouTube source we looked at even speculated about the top-end Pro Max hitting maybe $2,000 in some extreme tariff situation, though that felt like more of an outlier, a worst-case guess.
$2,000, wow. Okay, hopefully not that high.
Yeah, but the general feeling across the board is definitely, don't be surprised if the prices nudge upwards this year.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, looking at everything from these sources, the iPhone 17 lineup is genuinely shaping up to be one of the most interesting, maybe even contentious releases in years.
Absolutely. You've got this brand new, potentially game-changing ultra-thin air model, then these significant, maybe polarizing design shifts for the pros, that material change, that very different camera bump.
And then under the hood and in the cameras, some really big potential leaps forward. That boosted front camera on every model, the 3 48MP lenses on the Pros, especially that clever telephoto upgrade, plus the core performance stuff, A19 chip, maybe vapor cooling, more RAM, probably tied to AI.
But yeah, as these sources keep pointing out, these big swings aren't free. There are potential trade-offs everywhere. The 17 Air's thinness immediately flags major battery life questions, right? Even with efficiency talk. The Pro design, especially that camera bump, is clearly already dividing opinions online. And then layered over all of it, that potential price increase hanging in the air.
It's definitely a complex picture. Some really exciting tech possibilities mixed with some pretty big practical and aesthetic question marks.
It certainly gives you, the potential buyer, a lot to think about and weigh up.
Yeah, definitely. So based on everything we've unpacked from these rumors, the new Air, the Pro design stuff, the camera boosts, battery questions, the price risk, what single rumored change or feature stands out most to you? Like the one thing that would really sway your decision. And would that potential design controversy or the chance of paying more make you think twice about upgrading this year? Something to mull over, I guess, as we wait for Apple to actually show us what they've got.